All right, so we are going to talk about your erudite speech today. Actually, there are two, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. If you are a fan of futuristic dystopian type books or movies, you are probably very familiar with this symbol. If you like movies like The Maze Runner or The Giver or the Divergent series or books about those, you have probably seen this symbol before. This is a symbol for the erudite faction from the Divergent series. Now, I promise you that I did not come up with the name of this speech because of the Divergent series. Although I am a fan, I do like them. But I did not come up with this for that reason. There's a definition of the word erudite that applies really well to the type of speech I'm asking you to do. So that is where it came from. However, those of you that are fans, you would be able to tell quite clearly what an erudite speech means based on the name and the symbol. But let me tell you a little bit about it for those of you that have never seen the movie or read the books. So let's look at some of the requirements. What is the erudite speech? And you need to start with the definition. So the definition of erudite, the word erudite, is to show great knowledge or learning. And because this is both an informative and persuasive speech sort of meshed into one, it really does highlight learning on a subject area. So you're basically going to pick any topic you want, anything, as long as it is worthy of an informative and persuasive combo speech that shows great knowledge or learning. So it is pretty open. It is primarily persuasive, and we'll get into that in a minute, but you can pick pretty much any topic you want. And I have provided a list for you of potential topics on Blackboard if you are at a standstill and aren't quite sure where to go. But hold off on that until you get to watching the recording of starting the speech. That might give you some more ideas. So the erudite speech will be both informative and persuasive. You're actually going to deliver it twice. It is a complete total of 7 to 9 minutes, and I ask that you stick to that. You will need 5 sources, and each of those sources must be orally cited each time, and a presentation aid, followed by dressing either professionally or thematically, and including a speaking outline. All of this I will go over in detail. So let's start with the idea of showing great knowledge or learning. So how do you do this? In what ways do you demonstrate great knowledge or, quote, great learning? So there are a couple of things that I am looking for. I'm looking for you to fully research this speech. Fully research it. Organize it effectively, and I will give you all of the details on how to research and how to organize material. I ask that you efficiently inform us in one area about your topic, and you effectively persuade us for the rest of the speech. And then I also expect a very solid, well-practiced delivery. And so there are a lot of components of this speech, and you will have plenty of time and resources from me in order to complete it in a well-thought-out, well-prepared manner. There should be no reason why you are not prepared for this speech. I can guarantee you will have enough time. So let's look at the next part of this. It needs to be both informative and persuasive. What do I mean by that? I have seen in the past when I have done separate informative speeches and separate persuasive speeches that I've had a little bit of a disjointed nature in the speeches. The two speeches took a lot of work, they took a lot of research, and typically the persuasive speeches were very well done in most cases, whereas the informative speeches were kind of they're not the best. And even when they were good, it took a lot of effort to come up with all this material for that speech, and then you had to throw it in the trash, basically, and start all new with a fresh topic for the persuasive. Where I would prefer for you to kind of combine the components of each of those speeches and create an aspect of an informative speech and an aspect of a persuasive speech, and then do that speech twice in order to enhance it effectively. That was the whole purpose of creating this erudite speech, was to really hone in on the skills and get it done the right way. So it is, yes, both informative and persuasive. How do you do this? Any speech you have should have about 2 to 5 main points. That's pretty typical. So for the erudite speech, I am asking that one of your points be informative. what kind of component would be considered informative. You could give the history of a topic or the background of a person that is involved in your topic. You could explain how to do something or what something is. Now, going back to past speeches I've had, a lot of people will do topics like stereotyping of tattoos, and they will give the history of tattoos from the beginning of time, basically. That will be one main point. Or, for example, I had a student who was talking about the need for recycling, and it wasn't a speech that was very standard like that, we need to recycle. It was very interesting the way she brought it up. But she had her main point on informative on how to recycle shopping bags. And she did kind of a demonstration on how to fold them and make them so that they fit effectively into your car, so it's easy to transport. So that could be a part of it. It could be healthy eating and a demonstration or a discussion of the various types of vitamins and healthy foods. So there's a lot of options you have. Backgrounds of famous people, if that applies. If you are trying to promote a charity, maybe the background of that charity, how it got started, how it was formed, that would be a great tool. All of those would be informative aspects. You're not really persuading in this particular main point. You're just giving me some information. So one of those points must be informative. It doesn't matter if that's your first main point, in the middle, or at the end, but it needs to be a full main point that is purely informative. So the next one is to have 2 to 4 main points that are considered persuasive. So what do you do with this? You want to make sure that however you create these points, that you use a specific organizational pattern, and we'll get into that later in the semester. But a couple of options are to pick 2 main points for your topic and say this main point is to show you what the problem is, and this main point is to show you what the solution is. That would be an option. So you're basically choosing an organizational pattern for your remaining main points. Let's say you have 3 persuasive main points. One could be the problem, one could be what caused the problem, and then follow that with the solution for the problem. However you choose it, and like I said, we'll go over this in detail later, you want to make sure that that persuasive point is well organized and uses appropriate appeals, and again we'll talk about that later as well. So on the whole, you need 1 informative main point, only 1, and anywhere from 2 to 4 persuasive main points for your topic. Okay? So it does need to be both informative and persuasive. What's next? So we know that it shows great knowledge and learning, and we know that this erudite speech has to be both informative and persuasive. Next, you have to deliver it twice. Not in the same night. You are actually going to deliver it 2 separate times with a break in between. I think a week break in between. So what do I mean when I say delivered it twice? You're actually going to come to campus for your first round of speeches, go home after that, make some changes, make some edits, and then you're going to come back and deliver it again. So round 1 is actually, I think, in week 15 or so, or somewhere along that line, so pretty late in the semester. And this is the first time you're going to deliver the speech. And you will be asked to bring with you a fully prepared speech and the required outline and sources that go with it. So this speech is very detailed in evaluation. I ask that this be completely done, practiced, well researched, well planned, and you want this to be perfect, or as close to perfect for your satisfaction as you can come up with. It's worth 100 points, and I give you a lot of feedback on this speech. So this is delivered during around week 15, and you will have all the components and plenty of time to set it up and make sure it's exactly the way you want it. Once that's over, you're going to go home, and you are going to spend week 16 editing and planning how you're going to tweak or enhance the speech or change it altogether in certain aspects. You won't have to completely rewrite, but there may be a piece of the speech here or there that needs editing. So the round 2 then comes during finals week, and there's a specific date set aside for this. So check the calendar, check the course schedule, and make sure you know when that is. Round 2 is the second time you deliver the speech, where you will have had time to make any needed changes based on the feedback that you got from me in the first round. So I'll give you a lot of detail on that feedback sheet, and you will make changes based on that. In order to receive a grade, that equals or is better than round one, you have to make changes. If you make 0 changes, there is no way for you to achieve the same grade you achieved round one. You would lose points. So you need to make sure that there are changes made, whether that's more rehearsal, content changes, whatever it might be. I will have your evaluation next to me while you're speaking. So I need to know that you've made those changes and that you've worked on these. And round 2 is also worth 100 points. And there's some creative stuff that I can do to give you some points on round 2 for making those changes. And we'll talk about those later. So yes, this is delivered twice. There are a couple of things I'll do, and I'll talk to you about it when you arrive that day to make it a little bit more interesting, but you will have plenty of time to prepare and plenty of time to make some changes, and you will have full access to me for individualized help if need be. All right, so it's got to be informative and persuasive. It has to be delivered twice. It needs to be 7 to 9 minutes long. So you really need to keep to that 7 to 9 minutes. There's only so much time in our class period, and I really, really need you to stick to 7 to 9 minutes. The way I typically do this is I am able to give you back your speech pretty dang fast. And so in order for me to be as effective as I can be, I need you to stick to that 7 to 9 minutes so you can get your evaluation sheet back and make the changes you need. If you go over or if you go under, because obviously under is not good either, you will lose points. Every 30 seconds you are over or under the time range, you're going to lose a point. So for example, like I said, if it's 7 minutes is the minimum and you go 6 minutes 30 seconds, you'll lose a point. If you go 6 minutes, you'll lose 2 points because that's 2 30-second chunks. If you go 9.5 minutes, you'll lose a point. If you go 10 minutes, you'll lose 2 points, and so on down the line. So I do ask that you stick to your time limit. Time yourself. Time yourself using your visual or your auditory aid, whatever presentation aid you choose. Time yourself with it. Practice, practice, practice so that you know exactly how it sounds, and understand that you may have specific nuances where you speak faster or slower when you get a little nervous, and factor that in. So practice, practice, and stick to that 7 to 9 minutes. Next requirement is that you have to have 5 quality sources orally cited. Okay, so when I say quality sources, I mean a couple of things. When we talk about research, and that's in a few weeks, when you look at the research lecture, you're going to see that there are some things that I ask you to do to find a good source and to cite it properly. When you do that, I will actually quality check your sources. When you come to campus to deliver the speeches for round 1 and round 2, I will have your sources with me after the end and after the speeches, and I will go through them and do a quality check. I will likely make those notes and post those on Blackboard the next day or something like that, but I do ask that they be good sources. They can be from journal articles, they can be from opposing viewpoints, they can be from news websites, quality websites, books, that kind of thing, and we'll talk more about that later, but it definitely needs to be quality, and you do get points for how high quality your sources are. Okay? So 5 quality sources, and they're orally cited well. And when I say orally cited, you actually say the source during the speech, and I'll go over all of that later when we talk about sources and research. You are also required to have a presentation aid, and there are a lot of options for presentation aids. So review the lecture on presentation aids to see what options you have, but you could pretty much do anything. A lot of people choose PowerPoints. You don't have to do that. You could do a lot of stuff. So presentation aid is required. The next requirement is that you dress professionally or thematically. So what do I mean by this? You must choose one. You need to either dress professionally or thematically, which I'll go over in a second. More than likely, you're going to dress professionally. Almost all speeches require professional dress, and very few require thematic dress. However, it has come to pass that that is something that might be an option for you. So if that is something you want to consider, you're more than welcome to talk to me about it. If you choose professional dress, I'm kind of looking for that business casual look. Typically khakis or better. No jeans, no sweats, no tennis shoes, nothing like that. I'm looking for khakis or better. Khakis are better, khakis are better. That means khaki pants, dressy clothes. If you've ever been to a corporation and you see people dressed on a Friday, that business casual look, something similar to what this guy is wearing here, that's what I'm looking for. If you would like to go full suit, I have many students that tend to do that, and that's more than appropriate. So please feel free to do that for this speech. This doesn't apply to the previous speeches you've done, obviously, just to the erudite speech. Now, for example, let's say that you have a speech that you feel your dress is sort of a part of that speech. Then you can choose to dress thematically. That means that you theme your attire to the speech. Now, really, very few people are going to be able to use this because you have to talk about your attire during the speech. So it's really kind of hard to include this type of attire with the speech, but it may be appropriate. For example, I did have a student once who was promoting the women's basketball team here on campus, and she was talking about the environment, the feeling, the way it feels, the coloring and all of that for the team when you come to watch a game, and she came wearing her jersey and sweats. She mentioned colors and she showed some pictures and things of everybody in their jerseys. That sort of applied, and I was okay with that. But that was pushing it. If you were talking about getting into the nursing program, maybe you bring in this attire and talk about the dress code for nursing, and you go through those details. That's what I'm looking for in thematic. Please check with me first if you're going to go this route. If you don't check with me first, then I'm probably going to have an issue with it. So please make sure to check with me before you pick thematic. Otherwise, just go with option 1, and khakis are better. Okay? Next, speaking outline. So the speaking outline is another thing that you're going to have to include in the speech. So I am asking you to complete a very simple outline. I don't need it to be full-blown. It can be a very straightforward, looks kind of similar in setup as this here, but I'll go over details later. But it is really a simple outline that you're going to use for both rounds. You may need to make changes between round 1 and round 2. That depends. But I am asking for a speaking outline for both rounds. Review the lecture in a couple of weeks on outlining to make sure you have all the details you need, but you will bring it to class with you and submit that to me right before or right after your speech. Okay? Let's see. I actually look really forward to listening to these speeches. I have had great experiences with these. I've actually changed some things about myself because of some erudite speeches. Many years ago, about 8 years ago, oh gosh, it may be more than that, I had a couple of students do speeches on factory farming. And it was because of those speeches that I finally made the push to stop being a meat eater. Not that I have any problem with it. My husband and kids are full-blown meat eaters, but I decided to let go of it. And we now, even the meat eaters, we now purchase mostly from farmers markets and things like that, free-range groups as opposed to big chains. But it was something that we felt pretty strongly about, and I specifically changed because of a couple student speeches. So I really look forward to this, and I am excited to hear what you have to say. And I can't wait to see you in class. So if you have questions, let me know, and I will be here and available to answer whatever you need.